everyone, welcome to the Oak Roots YouTube channel. My name is Jess, and today I'm showing you a no-sew tutorial. Oh man, we don't do many of these because it's hard, but this is a no-sew fabric tutorial. No-sew fabric tutorial. I'm really excited about this one because it's a simple, quick project that you can do with your family, and it's super creative and super fun, and it's great for those of you who really like to buy like really cool fabric, but you don't really know what to do with it because you don't sew. Or you do sew, but you're just taking a bit of a break. You just want a quick finish with no zippers, no buttons, no stitches, none of that. This project just requires a few things. Most you have. One or two things you probably don't have and you're going to need to get, but it's worth it because you can use it in all kinds of other projects. Another reason why I'm so excited about this is because my husband helped me switch up the idea. And I'm gonna get to that in a minute, but it's a different take on a no-sew favorite, really, if you're in any sort of custom fabric groups. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna take one of these little glass lanterns. Now this is from IKEA, and you can get these anywhere, really. You can get them from Target, Walmart, probably. The one thing you wanna make sure when you're looking for with these things is that when you open them, they have these prongs on the inside around the glass so that you can remove the glass panels. If it's a glass panel that cannot be removed, this is not going to work. You need to be able to remove those glass panels. But we're going to take it from this, which is really cute, honestly, and turn it in to something like this. Now, we're not going to spray paint it. I just bought a black one. We're going to work with a white one today, but this is a black version of it. And then you put some lights. Here's a little light pack. Here's a little light pack I have inside. See, a bunch of twinkle lights. Shove them in there. And you have this beautiful custom fabric night light. These are so cute, but you might have seen these before. You might think you know how to do these, but we switched it up because my husband came in. He's like, that's really cool, but could you do it so that they could change out the fabric whenever they want? No, because that's not quite how it works. The way you're supposed to do this is you modge podge these onto the glass and it's permanent and this is what you get. But then that got me thinking, like, is there a way to do it so we could take these out and replace them with other fabric when we want to? We don't have to have 10 different lanterns. Instead, we can have one lantern that we interchange the fabric on. That's what we're going to do today. Interchangeable fabric on our lanterns. Custom-made lanterns. I know. Mind blown. So before we get started, let me remind you to subscribe down below if you haven't already. Every week we're going to have a new tutorial. And some of them are sewing related, some of them are not sewing related, like the one today. If at any point you like this video, give it a like. If you have any questions or any tips or ideas or anything like that, make sure you leave them in the comment down below. I'm actually not going to have timestamps for this video because it is such a simple project that I wouldn't even know how to split it up into steps. I'm telling you, it's such an easy project. So, no timestamps for this video. Keep on watching. Let's talk about those materials. All right, I'm going to show you the materials this way today because it's going to be a little bit easier. First thing you need is a lantern. Like I said, this lantern needs to have glass panels in it, and it needs to have these prongs up here. See those prongs? We need to have prongs like this right there. These allow us to open them up and remove the glass pane. We want to be able to remove the glass pane so that we can add our fabric into it, but we're not going to actually attach the fabric to this. Now, the way I've seen this done before is to use modge podge, where you cut out a piece of fabric and you modge podge it onto the glass. This was the plan for today's tutorial, and you can do that. But we decided we wanted to see if we can make removable fabric. So the next thing I like to have on hand in order to get these glass panes out is just a butter knife, and I'll show you. I'll open up this one. So you see how we have these prongs up here? You just take your butter knife. Slide it up under the prong and lift up. And you lift up the prong just like that. You take the other prong as so, and then that allows you to pop out this glass. And you can see my fabric is not adhered to the glass at all. I'll show you how I did that. And the magic tool that makes it so that we don't have to actually adhere the fabric to the glass is called Terial magic. I think it's Terial magic. Anyways, this is a fabric stabilizer. I bought this years ago in hopes of using it with my silhouette to cut fabric. This is the first time I've ever used it, and it's perfect for this. It takes your fabric and makes it like a piece of paper. You see this? It's almost like a card, like a playing card. Nice and firm. It allows us so that we can just put it in front of our glass pane, pop it back into our lantern. So we just use Terial Magic on other versions of our fabric, cut them to size, and then you can replace the fabric as often as you want in your lantern. That's so cool! All right, so the other thing you're gonna need is some fabric. Today I've got these two prints I'm gonna be working with. This is a cotton woven. I do prefer cotton woven for this project. I don't think a really thick fabric like a canvas would be great for this, but cotton woven is wonderful. And then this is a cotton lycra, and it is a little bit more difficult to work with, but it does have the same results. So I'm gonna show you that. We're gonna do kind of alternating patterns. These are both by Backstitch. To keep our mess to a minimum, I like to use a nice big baking sheet. I mean, if you have a cookie sheet, the big thing you want is anything with a nice lip around it that's a really flat surface, because we want this fabric to be nice and flat when we spray it down. And then I also use some wax paper to just put inside of the sheet. Again, just for easier cleanup. You're gonna need some sort of a pen, marking tool. I like to use my friction pens. This is gonna be to trace out your glass panels on your fabric. Fabric scissors to cut out your fabric. You're also gonna need an iron for this project. Also, some sort of battery operated lights. You can use small little tea lights that have batteries in them, or like this is just like a string light that I found from IKEA. Any sort of battery operated light that you can put in your lantern to really give it that nice glow and let the fabric be a real star in this project. And last but not least, you're gonna need to clean your iron after this project. You are gonna be pressing the Terial Magic when it's wet onto your fabric, which I find did gunk up my iron after a couple of lanterns. So, super easy fix. Mr. Clean Magic erasers, these things are great. You just get them damp, wipe them on your cool iron, and it cleans all the gunk off. It's amazing. If we have a gunky iron, I'm gonna show you how we do that in the end. All right, let's start cutting. Okay, the first thing you wanna do is prep your lantern. You can see I got this lantern from IKEA, and it was $3.99, so it's a very affordable project. Other big box stores, such as Walmart or Target, should also have an option like this. And what we want to do is we want to remove the glass panes. So I like to take the dull side of a butter knife and just push open those prongs. And only one set of prongs. You don't need to do all 4 of them. You want to do the least amount possible, because if you are going to be changing out this fabric over and over again, these prongs are going to get some wear. So I would just do the top the first time and then maybe the bottom the second time, and just don't use all 4 of them every time. And you just take your glass, pop it out, and put it to the side. We're going to do this for all the panels of glass. You can see that this lantern has a door on it, and these are very easy to get out. The inside panels can be a little bit trickier, especially with this little candle holder right here. What you want to do is you want to pull them out from the top, because you're going to have a hard time getting the glass in and out if you pull it out from the bottom. So do your best to pull them out from the top. There we go. Now we have all of our glass panels removed. All right, now for the fun part. We get to do some fussy cutting with fabrics. If you have a really fun print, like my jelly pens here with a bunch of different characters and designs on it, this is super fun because you can pick out exactly how you want it to show up in your lantern and then just trace it and cut around it. If you have a more neutral print, then this doesn't matter as much. You really can just do your rectangles on a corner of the fabric or scraps of fabric, however you want. So my lantern has 6 panels in it, so I'm going to use 3 of those panels with the cotton woven jelly pens. So I just find whatever I want. Let's see, what am I looking for today? I think I want to do, let's do Rapunzel. I love Rapunzel. So I'm just going to take my glass panel straight from the lantern, and I'm just going to line it up exactly how I want my design to look. I think that's cool. And then I just take a pencil or a friction pen, and then I just trace around the glass panel, just like so. And there's Lewis down there too. I love Lewis. I love this fabric. It's so much fun. All right, so there's one. So now I just got to pick 2 other spots. So it's good to make sure that your fabric has been pressed before you start tracing, just so you have a more accurate size. So now that I have all of my rectangles picked out, I'm just going to cut them out of the fabric. All right, so here are my cotton woven pieces all cut out and ready to go. Now let's do the cotton lycra. What I've noticed when working with cotton lycra is that it does tend to shrink a bit when we are stabilizing it. So when we cut out our rectangles, we're just going to cut it a little bit bigger than the rectangle, and then we can go back and trim it down to size. So I'll show you. For example, let's do this awesome Starbucks coffee cup. When I trace it, I'm going to give it a really loose trace that's about a 1/4 inch around the rectangle, just like this. And I'm okay with it being pretty messy because I'm going to trim it down to size after I stabilize it. Cotton woven doesn't have an issue with it shrinking, but cotton lycra does. So just to avoid frustration later, we're going to use a little bit of extra fabric so that we can really get a perfect cut. All right, so once you have your desired number of rectangles traced, just cut them out with some fabric scissors. So now you should have the number of fabric panels you need. If you're using the IKEA one that I'm using, that's 6 panels. As you can see, I have 3 cotton woven, 3 cotton lycra, and we're just going to see how they behave for the rest of this step. So now we want to spray these down with the fabric stabilizer. You could do the fabric stabilizer step before you cut out your fabric. I just find that a little bit wasteful when it comes to fabric, so I like to cut my fabric out first and then spray it down. But you could do them in either order. So this can be messy, and to reduce the mess, I'm just using a dirty kind of old roasting pan. You can use a cookie sheet. Just make sure it has a lip on it because this is liquid we're going to be putting in here, and if it spreads around, it's kind of a mess. I like to take a little bit of wax paper and just lay it inside my pan like so. Again, this just helps with cleanup. Lay your fabric in the pan. And now we're just going to pretty much drench them in the fabric stabilizer. When I spray, I put it on the spray side. There's a stream side and the off. I like to put it on the spray side because it's a little bit wider. This can make a mess, and it's a bit sticky when it gets on your hands, and it smells kind of funny. Just warning you. But get it nice, get your fabric nice and wet with this stuff. Just like that. You can see the cotton lycras, whoop, right away they start shrinking up. Flip over your fabric, so we do both sides. Yeah, and it definitely has a smell. The cotton woven absorbs the fabric really fast. The cotton lycra needs a bit more to really get soaked. And that's what we want. We want it pretty soaked because then it's in all the fibers, and when we press it with our iron, it's going to stiffen it up like a piece of paper. But if you don't get it in all the fibers, those parts will remain kind of floppy, loosey-goosey. You can just let this sit for a couple minutes. The bottle says to let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes. I haven't. I just kind of let it sit while I wait for my iron to heat up. So I'm going to be using my wool pressing mat to press these down. I haven't had a problem with the chemicals from the stabilizer being a big issue on my wool pressing mat. I mean, if you use starch to spray your fabric repeatedly, your ironing mat, your pressing mat, it's going to have the starch in it as well. These pressing mats and ironing boards were made for this, so it's really not a big problem. All right, I just changed my pressing mat because that one was kind of ugly. So make sure your iron is nice and hot. Take one of your drenched pieces of fabric, and you can just kind of squeeze it a little bit. Be careful not to pull on it too much. You see when you squeeze it like that, it causes the edges to fray a whole bunch. So now lay it nice and flat on your pressing mat. Now, when you press this with your iron, there's a good chance your iron is going to stick to it. So I don't suggest putting your entire iron right over it, because then when you pick up your iron, it's stuck to the bottom, and now you get to figure out how to get it off your iron. What I like to do, and your hands are going to get messy, what I like to do is just do about 3/4 of it. Nice little sizzle. Hold it there for just a few seconds, and then just kind of worm it away. Always make sure you're pressing on the back too first, because you can see as some of this dries, it does turn into a white chalky look. It's usually just when you do it on the back first. What you're doing is you're actually getting this fabric stabilizer to dry very, very quickly using an iron. But once you get it started, it's much easier. Now you can see we're going to flip it over. So let's try the next one. Let's try not wringing it out, because the wringing it out step does make it a little bit more crinkly. But you can see it's just a couple seconds with the iron, and now it's a piece of paper. So here's one done. Let's try a cotton lycra piece. So I'm not going to wring this one out. I'm going to keep it nice and extra drenched. I'm gonna take my iron, and like again, I'm just gonna do a little bit more than half of it because it will stick to the iron. And I'm always starting on the back of it. You can see the cotton lycra one. It does take longer with the iron to get it to dry. All right, let's flip it over and do the front. Yeah, it's still not totally dry. Here's my cotton lycra piece. It just takes a little bit longer with the iron to get the stabilizer to completely dry, but once it's dry, it's a nice like piece of cardstock. Let's put to the side and let's just do the remaining 4 pieces. And with the cotton lycra, you can really tell when it's ready because it'll seem dry, but it will still be very loose. And then all of a sudden, it's like a piece of paper. So if it doesn't feel paper-like, just keep pressing it. So you can see right now, it kind of seems dry. It feels a little dry, but it's still so floppy. It's not done yet. Once you have all of your pieces pressed and paper-like, go wash your hands. That fabric stabilizer is very sticky to work with, so I like to make sure I wash my hands after I'm done with it. You can see that my iron is a bit dirty from all that. I'm gonna let this cool down and I'm gonna show you how I clean it. All right, so that was the hardest step. Now we just have to insert this back into our lantern. So if you recall, we made our cotton lycra pieces just a little bit bigger than the glass panes because they do shrink with the stabilizer. So you can see it's quite a bit bigger right now. So all I do now is I trace it again. So I line it up exactly how I want it, take my pen, and now it's like writing on paper, honestly. Give it a good trace all around. And then I'm just gonna cut it out like this. And this is gonna make sure that when I put it in my lantern, it's not falling out. Because if it's not big enough to get under those little hooks in your lantern, it's not gonna stay in place. So when inserting these back into the lantern, you have a couple options. You can insert it in so that it is in front of the glass, or you can insert it in so that it is behind the glass. My glass has this star on it, which I actually don't really want to be seen, so I'm going to insert it in front of the glass. This gives it a more matte finish since it's the fabric, but if you wanted like a glossy finish, just insert it in behind the glass and it's going to give you a very shiny look. So I'll show you how to do each type. So this one I'm going to insert in behind the glass. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to take my glass panel and I'm going to insert it in the bottom prongs first and then push it all the way up, just like so. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my piece of fabric. I'm going to insert it so that it's in underneath those bottom prongs. You can see through the glass. It's like that. And then I push it all the way up, just like so. So now I have my glass panel and my fabric tucked under the bottom prongs, and the top prongs are still open. So I'm going to take my butter knife again, and I'm just going to close the top prongs over the glass and the fabric. And that just is going to secure the glass and the fabric in place. So you can see this gives it a nice glossy look from behind the glass. So to do it on the front of the glass, you actually just do the fabric piece first, sliding that inside, tucking it in behind the prongs on the bottom that you left closed, just like that. Flip it upside down. Make sure it's pushed in all the way. The top prongs are still nice and open, so you should push it in underneath there. Grab a glass panel, and then tuck the glass panel under the bottom prongs and up to the top prongs. So now this should be nice and flush. Take your butter knife and push down those prongs. I find that having the fabric on the front keeps it much more secure. You can see the fabric on the back. I can kind of move it around a little bit, which makes me a little worried that it might pop out when I'm shoving lights in it. When it's on the front, it's nice and in there. That glass is protecting it with that frame, so it's not going to go anywhere. So just continue on the rest of the way. And there we go. There is our finished lantern. So now you can grab yourself some of this rope light or a little tea light and stick it inside your lantern and close it up. And let's go see what it looks like in the dark. So you can see this is the original lamp I made. This is using the string lights, and this is the black lantern. I used cotton woven for this one. Ooh, it's so spooky. And I put it on the outside of the glass panels. Here's the one we just made using a little tea light. You can see this has more of an orange glow to it, so this would be really sweet for maybe a child's bedroom. You can see we use the cotton lycra behind the glass pane and the cotton woven in front of it. I do think that putting the fabric in front of the glass pane is a much cleaner look than behind the glass pane. But here are our different glowing lanterns. Very, very unique and cool. And totally interchangeable. In the light, here is our cotton woven in front of the glass panel using the string lights inside. And here's the lantern we made together where we have some of the glass panels in front of the fabric and some of the glass panels behind the fabric. My advice for the best result, use cotton woven, keep your fabric on the outside with a more matte finish, and use these string lights. These string lights have a really bright glow and it really shows off the fabric as we saw when we were in the dark room. These little tea lights are very sweet for maybe a night light, but you don't get a full view of the fabric. Cotton lycra shrinks with the stabilizer, which makes it just a bit difficult to work with. And when you put the fabric behind the glass panel, it does have a tendency to look, you know, like you can see through on the edges. I don't know. It's personal preference. You do what makes you most excited. But these are very easy, inexpensive gifts to make for the holidays. Fun activities to do on the rainy days and the snowy days since we're getting into winter. And you can totally customize it without a sewing machine. No sewing machine required, which is so fun. All right, and before we end this, let me just show you how we're gonna clean this iron off. It has all kinds of gunk on it from that stabilizer. I'm gonna take one of my Mr. Clean magic erasers. Now you can take this in the sink and get it wet and just wring it out, but since I'm here, I'm just gonna take a water bottle and give it a good, give it a good spritz. Just wanna get it a little wet. I don't know what is in these magic erasers. I don't think I want to know, but it works really well. So then I just take my iron and I just rub it nice and gentle. And it just takes all the gunk right off the iron. I don't know how. It needs to be more wet. And the iron, if the iron's a little bit worn, it's going to dry out your sponge. So, woo! I made a mess. Okay. So just get it a little bit wet again. Scrub, scrub, scrub. And it just gets all that gunk off your iron. Makes it look good as new. I don't know how it does this. I've tried so many other ways of cleaning my iron with like peroxide or vinegar. Now this is a steam iron and it does have a water reservoir, but I don't use the steam in it, so I'm not really worried about cleaning the steam holes. I only use it as a dry iron. You can see, nice and clean. What? I like to clean the handle too because the handle gets a little dirty with all that stabilizer. But you can see it got off all the gunk that was on there. And now back to a brand new iron. Thanks so much for sticking around with me today. I hope that you're as excited about these lanterns as I am because these are just such a fun way to show off some of your favorite fabric. Fabric is really fun to buy. Even people who don't sew find it really fun to buy fabric. And this is a way to use your fabric without actually having to sew and a way to look at your fabric. You know, when we buy our fabric, we fold it up, we put it in a shelf or we put it in a bin and we don't see it. Or, you know, we have it and we can take it out sometimes and we pet it and we love it, but we don't see it. This is a great way to like always see your favorite parts of the fabric that you bought. And when you make these lanterns, it doesn't have to be a really fun, sketchy print. I am planning on making another white lantern using these beautiful batiks, and I'm gonna put some tea lights in it and some seashells, and it's just gonna be like a nice ocean lantern that I can keep on whenever I can't get to the beach. I hope the rest of your week goes great. Get out there and make something. Bye!